I've given it my all, really tried to make this marriage work, but I've hit my limit. Unless she makes a huge gesture to prove she's committed to saving what we have, I'm ready to start the divorce process. Let me take you back to how this all began, about 1.5 years ago. My wife, Christine, had been a stay-at-home mom for 10 years. Then, she decided it was time to pitch in financially so we could pay off the house quicker. She got a job delivering pizzas at a local shop. It was a tiny place, nothing fancy, and she was always upfront about what went on there. I got to know her coworkers. They'd come over for dinner sometimes. Last year, she convinced me to let one of them, a guy named Miguel, rent our spare room. She explained it'd bring in a little extra cash for us, and he'd get to live in a better space. Miguel was a decent guy. I had no reason to think twice about it. My wife had been nothing but trustworthy throughout our 17 years together. Plus, Christine was pushing 50, and Miguel was in his late 20s, an immigrant working hard to save enough money to bring his wife over. It seemed harmless. Then, 5 months later, things started to change. Christine suddenly moved out of our bedroom and into the spare room. Now, on its own, that wasn't a big deal. We've done it before, different sleeping preferences, odd work hours on my end. It wasn't unusual. But after a few days, I came home for lunch, and she sat me down. She said we needed to talk. Apparently, earlier that morning, our 12-year-old daughter, Emily, had walked in on her and Miguel kissing in the kitchen. I felt like the ground was ripped out from under me. I asked Christine point-blank if she had slept with him. She said yes. I told her I still loved her deeply and reminded her that 17 years of marriage meant we had something worth fighting for. She agreed to try counseling. Miguel moved out that very day, and we started seeing a marriage counselor. But Christine hated it. She'd break down crying after every session. To be fair, that first counselor wasn't great. They didn't seem to have a handle on things. So, I found someone better, and this new guy was excellent. Even so, Christine flat out refused to give it another shot. She wouldn't go back. I ended up going to sessions alone for a while, 6 in total. Throughout this, Christine wouldn't quit her job. I begged her, not because I was jealous, but because I felt working alongside Miguel would keep us from truly healing. She refused and got angry whenever I brought it up. She even tossed her phone at me once, and told me to go through her texts if I didn't trust her. I checked, and there wasn't anything suspicious. But still, she didn't quit. Months passed, and we stayed stuck, like we were living under a gray cloud. The uncertainty of where we were headed weighed on me every single day. I kept brainstorming ways to bring us back together, with my counselor's help. One idea was to take a vacation, just the two of us. But Christine turned it down flat. By November, I was running out of hope. My counselor gently suggested that maybe I'd done all I could. Even my dad said I should wait until after Christmas to avoid ruining the holidays for everyone. During all this, I snooped around a little. In the spare room where Christine had been sleeping, I found a stash of lingerie tucked away in her dresser. It wasn't new stuff, but she had specifically moved it there. Now, Christine had hated wearing lingerie for years, so it stood out to me. But here's the thing, it never moved. I kept an eye on it, and it was always in the exact same spot. She hadn't touched it. I also checked her phone again, combing through her texts. Nothing suspicious showed up. I kept an eye on that lingerie, watching it sit there for so long that eventually, I almost stopped checking. Then, near the end of November, Christine went out to run some errands. While she was gone, I decided to take another look in her dresser. This time, the lingerie was gone. Later that day, after she came back, I checked again, and it was back in its spot. Around that same time, I decided to go through her texts again. That's when I noticed something odd. Her entire conversation history with Miguel had been wiped clean. No other messages were deleted, just his. From November into December, divorce was heavy on my mind. I couldn't shake the feeling it was where we were heading, but I wanted to be absolutely sure I wasn't making a mistake. We have a daughter, Emily, and I worried about what this would do to her. On top of that, Christine and I still got along so well in some ways. It felt impossible to imagine finding anyone else who shared her unique traits. After 17 years together, maybe I was just trying to gather the courage to leave. Then came New Year's. Miguel flew back to his home country, and Christine drove him to the airport. For some reason, she kept his car at our house. A few days later, she told me she didn't think Miguel had left for just a vacation. Instead, she suspected he planned to stay there permanently. She claimed he had said some suspicious things before leaving, but the more she talked, the more it seemed like she had known all along that he wasn't coming back. It felt like she was just pretending to piece it together. I checked her phone again, and sure enough, she had wiped out her entire text history with him, again. This week, Christine dropped another bomb. She told me Miguel's wife had found out about the affair. Apparently, she tried to reach out to Miguel, but his wife intercepted the messages and told Christine to leave them alone, angrily, with words and emojis to drive the point home. I suggested I could email Miguel to figure out what to do with his car, but Christine ignored me. Yesterday, she admitted she tried contacting him multiple times despite everything. It was like she couldn't, or wouldn't, understand that she needed to stop. That was it for me, the final straw. It's not just that Christine doesn't respect me, she doesn't respect Miguel's wife either. It's clear to me now that she has no intention of ending things with him, and her behavior has only gotten more suspicious over time. I'm done. I've tried everything to fix this marriage, not just since the affair but even before. I've been the best husband I know how to be, helping around the house, being there for Emily, fixing things, showing affection without expecting sex. But I can't keep living like this. The shock, the anxiety, the fear, it's all too much. I've cried more times than I can count. And I'll never understand why she cheated in the first place, let alone why she keeps hiding things and refuses to fight for us the way I have. Sometimes I catch myself shouting out loud, "Why did you do this?" Or, "Why can't you just love me?" And I hate feeling like this. For a moment, I even thought about staying in the marriage, even without love or intimacy, because there's still some good between us. But I know now that I'll never be able to move on if I stay under the same roof with her. The misery is quiet, but it's constant, and I can't ignore it anymore. I need to divorce her to truly move forward. I can't keep living in this cloud of uncertainty and heartbreak. It's selfish of her to keep me in this position. I want out. At least I have some peace in knowing I've done everything I could to save what we once had. When she first confessed, divorce crossed my mind, but I didn't want to rush into it and regret it later. Now I'm sure I won't. January 15th, the next day, I sat Christine down to talk about divorce. I told her the truth. I love her and probably always will, but I can't keep living the way I've been. We're not healing, and after all this time, I don't think we ever will. I said it was time to end our marriage. She agreed. Christine admitted she doesn't feel like we're making progress either. She said she hasn't been getting the emotional connection she needs for a long time, even before Miguel came into the picture. To be honest, that didn't surprise me. Something between us has felt off for a while now. I tried harder to be a better husband, but my effort alone wasn't enough. The tricky part is, Christine doesn't even know what she's missing. I truly believe therapy could have made a difference for her, maybe cognitive behavioral therapy, too. It's possible I've been giving her everything she needs, but she might have unresolved issues or a mindset that's keeping her dissatisfied with life. And that dissatisfaction has bled into our marriage. Therapy could have helped her find clarity, but it's too late for that now. I did try to encourage her to see a counselor a few years ago, but she refused. We also discussed what comes next. We don't have everything worked out yet, but we're leaning toward leaving Christine the house while I keep our savings. The two are about equal to the equity in the home, so it feels fair. I suggested we split custody of Emily 50-50, and Christine didn't object. My work schedule, rotating between days and nights, might complicate things a bit, but Emily is nearly 13 and doesn't have any special needs. She's independent enough to manage her mornings without me if needed. I know I'll have to pay child support since it's determined by a government formula, and that's fine. Christine has already said she won't push for spousal support, which is a big relief. She knows she caused this situation, and I'm grateful she's not trying to make things harder. I earn a good living, but between child support and any significant spousal support, my finances would take a serious hit. We haven't discussed my pension yet, but considering how cooperative she's been so far, I feel optimistic. It's still early, and we'll need time to work out the specifics, meet with lawyers, and get everything rolling. This is tough, but I'm glad it's shaping up to be amicable. I know some of you might want me to go nuclear on Christine, to blindside her with divorce papers, fight for full custody, or try to hold on to everything I can. I get it. She betrayed me, and it's tempting to imagine some kind of justice. But dragging this into a legal war wouldn't make anything better. The reality is, I wouldn't win full custody or walk away with all the assets. Instead, I'd spend tens of thousands of dollars on lawyers, only to end up with a deal worse than what Christine's offering now. And in the meantime, there'd be months or years of stress, anger, and conflict, which would hurt Emily most of all. The lawyers would walk away richer, and we'd all walk away miserable. No thanks. Honestly, I'd rather keep the peace. Christine and I will still have to co-parent Emily after the divorce, so staying civil makes sense. I've seen too many people spend years locked in endless fights with their exes over their kids. They're always angry and exhausted, and their children suffer for it. I don't want that for Emily, or for myself. Right now, I don't feel happy. I feel sad, scared, and sometimes even nauseous. I second-guess myself more often than I'd like. But deep down, I know this is the right decision. Divorce is like ripping off a Band-Aid, except it's not quick or clean. It's a long, painful process, and it leaves you raw. Still, I have hope that things will get better in time. January 23rd, some of you have reached out asking for an update, so here it is. There isn't a whole lot to report, but here's where things stand. Since we decided to separate, Christine has been oddly helpful in some ways. She's been looking up houses for me, like seriously browsing listings, and showing me ones she thinks I'd like. It's almost like she's shopping for us as if we were moving together. On top of that, she's been looking for a job. At one point, she turned to me and asked, "What are we doing?" Like the idea of us splitting up was completely absurd. Then she asked if I really wanted to go through with this. It's confusing. I keep getting these mixed signals from her. Does she actually want the divorce, or does she want to reconcile? What hasn't changed is her stance on therapy. She's flat out refused to see a therapist again, even though I know it could help her. And honestly, it could have helped us. I still love her, but I can't live in this limbo anymore. I need a clear path forward, either we reconcile, or we divorce, but sitting on the fence isn't an option for me. This uncertainty has been hanging over me for far too long. I've been trying to hold it together, but if Christine isn't willing to change, then leaving is my only choice. It's a painful decision, but I can't stay stuck in this place forever. I've decided to take the next step and get a lawyer this week. Last week was a whirlwind at work, so I didn't have the chance. Hopefully, starting the legal process will give me some sense of direction. At least I'll feel like I'm taking control of my life again and moving forward. March 8th. Lately, we've been going through the motions, acting like everything is normal, even though it's not. I've started looking at houses and cars. Sharing a single vehicle isn't sustainable, so I need my own. Christine's behavior continues to be all over the place. Sometimes she's cheerful, she even pointed out a nice house she thought I'd like. Other times, she's irritable. She found a house she was interested in for herself, but it sold before she could go see it. Since then, she's made snarky comments about other houses that might work for her. She hasn't been very serious about finding a place or improving her job situation, though. She did come up with a budget recently, and showed me how she'd be $1,000 short each month, even with my child support payments. I offered to chip in an extra $500 in spousal support, pointing out that it wouldn't be hard for her to make up the remaining $500 by working a few extra hours as a pizza driver. She didn't take it well. Instead of appreciating the suggestion, she grumbled, complained, and quickly changed the topic. Initially, I wanted to leave her the house so the process could be quick and easy, but now I'm starting to doubt that plan. If she's not willing to step up, I might have to insist we sell the house and split the proceeds. A few weeks ago, I decided to address something that's been gnawing at me. I asked Christine point blank if she kept sleeping with Miguel after she confessed the affair. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she stared at the wall for a good 5 or 6 seconds before saying she didn't want to talk about the details of their sexual encounters. That silence told me everything I needed to know. Not long after, she asked why I wanted a divorce. I laid it out for her. She continued her affair even after admitting it. We've made zero progress in rebuilding our relationship after nearly 8 months, and I can't keep living in this state of limbo. Her response? She brushed off everything I said and claimed the only issue in our marriage was a lack of sex. Seriously? Was she not listening? The problems between us go way deeper than that. Then, a few days ago, I stumbled across something she'd written about our divorce. It was a pros and cons list. Under cons, she wrote that she loves me and loves our life together. But under pros, she listed setting me free and immediate sex. Immediate sex? What does that even mean? Is she planning something? On a more practical note, I found a guide on how to handle a divorce without lawyers. That could save us a lot of money, at least.